everybody. It is 8:40 right now, and welcome to the program, and also welcome to Rekha.
Why,
Good
thank
Morning
you.
Register. How are you?
I'm well, thanks. How are you?
Good. Is it raining outside yet or not?
It's just gray and gloomy. It's not raining yet, but it looks like it's going to. Very menacing.
All right. So what are we chatting about this morning?
So I'm talking about, my column today is about a voter identification bill which has passed both houses of the Iowa legislature and is on its way to the governor for his signature. And this is a bill that would tighten the requirements for voting. It would require that everyone who showed up at the voting booth on election day or to vote absentee beforehand would have to have a government-issued ID card, even if their name is on the list of voters. So normally you go in to vote, your name is on the list, they check it off, and that's fine, right. But there are a number of Iowans who don't have government-issued IDs, and especially elderly, low-income, and minority people, because they don't have cars or don't drive.
See, is that considered a government-issued ID?
That's considered a government-issued ID, and that's one of the few forms of government-issued ID that is considered legitimate. And so it's going to put a real burden on minority voters, and it has been, and actually it has been ruled out by different states, in different states by federal courts for suppressing the minority vote. And being in violation of the Voting Rights Act, which was intended to increase the number of minority voters. Now, an interesting thing about the bill in Iowa is that of the 54 lobby groups which are registered to take a position on it with legislators, there's only one that supports the bill, right? And that's the Minutemen. That's the Iowa Minutemen Civil Defense Corps, which is a group that was notoriously known for vigilanteism, because they're very opposed to illegal immigration. They were actually showing up along the border in Arizona and California and apprehending people who were crossing the border or looked like they were crossing the border. And some of them were implicated in actually murdering people who were found in the desert, shot to death. So this is a group that lately has revised its tactics a little bit. The national group is disbanded, but there still is a chapter in Iowa. And they say that most of their work is focused on advocacy around illegal immigration issues. And also, if they're aware of where an undocumented immigrant is, they call law enforcement authorities.
So you see there's 54 lobbying groups, and these are the only ones that stepped up for this?
Who are supporting it, exactly. So what Democrats say, and a lot of civil rights groups say, is that, this is the thinly veiled reason for this bill, is actually to suppress the minority vote. And that they're saying that this is on the part of Republicans. All 28 Republicans in the Senate, for example, voted for it. All 21 Democrats and some independents voted against it. The notion being that minorities tend to vote Democratic. And so, even though in the last election, 2016, the presidential election, there was only one incident reported by the Secretary of State of voter misconduct, they are undertaking this huge thing, which is going to cost, $1.1 million for upgrading computer systems that tell you whether someone is dead or not, and is again showing up to vote. And they're also going to spend, $500,000 on the Secretary of State's office. That it's going to be longer lines. You're not going to be allowed to vote straight party ticket anymore. So that's going to create the need for more poll workers. So basically, they're throwing up all of these, I guess, disadvantages in the path of normal voters for no reason at all. There was only one misconduct last time, and that person was a Trump supporter who was so persuaded by Trump's voter suppression threat, scares, fear-mongering that he was doing, that she voted twice and said she was afraid that her first vote wouldn't count. So that's it.
So it wasn't somebody trying to sneak under the radar when it comes to that. It was just somebody.
Well, it was someone who voted twice, but she thought the government was not going to count her vote.
But it was somebody that was still legal to vote, but it wasn't an illegal person voting. Is what I'm getting at.
Exactly,
Okay.
And that's the thing. There is no, and so this whole thing is, these fears have been drummed up about illegal immigrants voting.
Has that been a problem in the past?
No, it has absolutely not been a problem. That's
so where did the solution to a problem that didn't exist come from?
It's like these organizations like ALEC, or I don't know in this case if it was that, but these national organizations that go around telling, of Republicans that go around, very conservative groups go around telling state legislatures legislatures, here's a way to get at illegal immigrants. They might show up to try and vote, and if you pass a bill making it harder, you can identify them, blah, blah, blah. So, this has been happening in states around the country that they've passed bills like this, but several of them have been knocked down by the courts because of these provisions. So the very fact that the Minutemen is the only group lobbied in support for this tells you something about the intent behind it, or at least the perceived intent behind it, which is not very friendly to democracy, I'd argue.
Interesting.
Well, sorry, I haven't had time to collect my thoughts, because I didn't see an issue with this bill, because they're going to allow you to, they're going to give you free IDs if you don't have one. So if you're elderly or things like that, they give you the opportunity to have an ID. So it's not like you're just showing up and saying, I don't have anything.
Yeah.
I can see it moving a little bit quicker if you're able to just scan an ID and get the line moving, as opposed to going down, papers and things like that. So I didn't see a huge issue with the bill, but I do see where you're saying big red flags are going up when you see who is supporting this bill. So
exactly. And
interesting take on it.
Yeah, I know. So, we'll see how this plays out. My guess is that the governor will sign it, and I think that they might have taken some pains to avoid the kind of pitfalls that got some other states in trouble. Like, there's one alternative to a picture ID, which is this voter ID, this identification number that you're talking about that will be given out. But there's a whole procedure to get it. It just becomes more cumbersome and complicated if you're a new voter, for example, or an elderly voter.
But do you think it's wrong to prove who you are because you want your vote to count and you want to make sure it's you who's voting?
You absolutely want your vote. I would say if there's any question about your identity, absolutely. If somebody who is dead turns up to vote, then I think they should be challenged.
My whole life growing up, so.
But I think it's a solution in search of a problem, actually.
Okay.
All right. Well, to read more about it, just pick up the Des Moines Register. What page of the hymnal this morning?
It's on, what is this, 13A.
13A. Perfect. Wonderful. Thank you, Rekha.
Thank you. Good to see you.
It is 8:47 right now, and a big event is happening this weekend, folks, and we're going to be there. We'll be part of it. The Heart Walk is going on. We'll give you all the details as to where and when we come back.